Hi, my name is Stephanie Sahano. Today, my daily painting is going to be about my relief at being done with this big job I was doing over the weekend, doing announcements and chat monitoring for a huge workshop where I was translating things into 4 different languages. So I'm feeling a huge relief of that burden. I'm so glad that it's done. It was a great learning experience. I have no regrets about having done it. But whew, I'm glad that it's over. So that's going to be the theme of my painting today. It's going to be relief. All right, so today's painting is me putting down a very heavy weight. A heavy burden, which I'm representing with this kettlebell. I chose a kettlebell because it seemed like something that I could draw. And after the energy I've expended, I don't really have that much energy left to research how to draw something else, making the heart still on my body, but it's really flattened and foreshortened. I don't know, that might mean my neck is in a bad position, but it's just a drawing. I'm not actually going to hurt myself. All right, so there's the inking. There's the inking. Now we can do the thinking. All right, I'm gonna just erase the pencil marks and then I'll start the painting and chat more about what I'm thinking. Meanwhile, while you're waiting, if you'd like to take a breath, that's what I do. All right, so here's the image. Well, I learned a tremendous amount over the weekend about how to handle distressing things and how to handle attacks. It was pretty important information for me and for any human being, and how to listen even more deeply, because deep listening is really what's required for making connection with people. And I think really the most important thing in the world is really connection. Let's see, I'm going to do the heart next. My goal is to be as connected as possible to people, and this class I was taking was partly teaching us about how to be connected when people are attacking, how to keep your connection when people are attacking. And the gist of it is that whenever people are attacking, they're telling you where their distress is. And if you can figure out where their distress is and stay centered enough yourself, you can listen to their distress. And with enough listening to the point where they can actually feel heard I'm not saying that's an easy task, but if you can do that to the point where they feel heard, then they're more likely to be um, able to feel safe, and safety leads to connection. And that's where we can reach for each other and create the connection that's needed. So it was a really great class. I'm really relieved to not have to be interpreting things in too many languages. It was really interesting. I loved seeing the languages. I loved seeing how closely related French, Spanish, and English are. And it was really interesting to try to figure out how to do, like when I was doing the Hebrew translations and I was having to copy things from Hebrew, I had to use my mouse in the opposite direction, like copy from right to left instead of left to right. And that took me a little while to figure that out. So I was initially quite slow doing the Hebrew translations, but then I picked up speed as I figured out what was going wrong. And at the time of this painting, there's a big war going on in Israel and Gaza. And so part of the purpose of this was so that we can listen and create enough safety that we can try to achieve some sort of peace. And there were people from all over the world present, from several countries on the African continent, from some people on the Australian continent, some people in Europe, some people in North America, some people in South and Central America. I'm sure I'm forgetting someplace. But it was really interesting to be able to spend time with people from so many places. And we had part of this is language liberation. So they have interpreters and various different people from various different language groups were speaking their language. And there were channels that were interpreting into all the other languages, but it was really fun hearing the different languages from all over the world. And also seeing the faces and hair and styles of people from everywhere in the world was also really interesting. The one that was hardest for me to understand, because I'd never heard it before, I think, was the Irish language. It's very musical. I've heard lots of people speaking lots of languages all over the African continent because I've used interpreters for many years with for my work doing, so I had like medical interpreters, but I realized I never had anybody speaking the traditional language of Ireland. So I never had an interpreter of Irish before, and so therefore I was never exposed to that language. So that was the most unfamiliar. And it was fun for me to listen to Hebrew and Spanish because I understand a few words in each of those languages. When I was a kid, I spoke Spanish. It was the language of the neighborhood I lived in. And I took Spanish through school. And when I was in college, I took Spanish and Hebrew. So I knew a little bit of the Hebrew sounded familiar enough, even though I couldn't understand most of what they were saying, but the musicality of the language made sense to me because I had a lot of exposure to it throughout my life. And the French, my daughter speaks French, and so I've heard her speaking French a lot. So that one sounded familiar too. And I have family who lives in Europe and they speak French. Oh, I know that when I'm standing up, the purple is inside, is surrounding the heart, and the blue is below that. I'm trying to figure out how to foreshorten this doing the colors. It was fun listening to all the languages, so much fun. And I only had to interpret into 4 languages because the people who spoke the other languages also spoke English or French, and so they could use the English or French interpreters. So there were some live interpreters behind the scenes, and then there were the announcements had to be put into all those languages so everybody could understand. I love how inclusive this was. But it was a lot of effort. And I was only doing one part, one tiny part. The people who organized all these people from all around the world, oh my gosh, hats off to them. They did a magnificent job. The thing went off without a hitch. The teachers were outstanding. I learned so much. I feel much better equipped to handle high conflict situations now. I've studied about some about how to handle high conflict situations. I've studied nonviolent communication in the past. Some of this stuff felt familiar, but the gist of it is listening is the most important. Listening is like a very powerful tool for connection. So that's the biggest thing I took away. All right, so there's the finished painting. My contact information will be at the end of the video, and I'll see you in the next one.